will be recorded. So if you need something to share with your colleagues afterwards, please feel free to shoot us an email. We'd be happy to talk with you and share the presentation with you. So today I am so excited to first introduce Jessica Schneider from 92nd Street Y. Jessica is the Director and Strategy and Collaboration in 92nd Street Y's Belfer Center for Innovation. In this role, Jessica leverages the power of new media and partnerships with outside organizations to strengthen and extend the reach of 92nd Y's core values. She spearheads several initiatives and programs, including GivingTuesday, the Women in Power Fellowship, and Social Good Summit. Jessica has also held positions at Rent the Runway, General Assembly, and the Paley Center for Media. She earned a BA from Georgetown University and her master's in public administration from NYU. And I'm also excited to introduce my partner and co-founder of Groundwork Digital, president of Groundwork Digital, Justin Ware. Justin is an Emmy-winning content marketer and social media strategist with 15 years of experience, really starting in TV news, but returned to work for his alma mater, the University of Minnesota. Since U of M, he has been a strategist and consultant for Benz Whaley Flessner and Russell O'Neill Levitt, and is now co-founder and president here, like I mentioned, at Groundwork Digital. And we're so excited to talk to you about these new digital giving initiatives that really power the nonprofit community. So we want to obviously start with a little bit of a description around GivingTuesday. How has it gone so far? And really some of these stats, which are so powerful, has grown so much, which Jessica will talk to you about in a little bit. But just from last year alone, $177 million raised online. Not online alone, right? GivingTuesday has a lot of different work that's being done in a kind of multi-channel fashion, but 177 million, that's incredible. And that was all coming from 1.64 million total gifts, which is, obviously an average gift size of about almost $108, which is so fantastic, obviously, for our nonprofit community. But beyond the dollars raised, GivingTuesday has so much more room that it grows, right? From a social media perspective, had almost 2.4 million social media engagements last year alone, and inspires acts of kindness, right? After we go through Black Friday and Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday, we get to spend a day where we get to really be kind and good to each other, and really focus on that in social media, which is so nice these days. So GivingTuesday really, again, has its hands in so much. But I'm going to pass it over to Jessica really to speak to the reach and the growth that GivingTuesday has had.
Hi, everyone, and thank you to Groundwork for inviting me to participate today. As mentioned, I'm Jessica Schneider from New York City's 92nd Street Y, the home of GivingTuesday. We are an 143-year-old community and cultural center on the Upper East Side of New York City. And I'm in our Belfer Center for Innovation and Social Impact. You heard a little of my bio, but very briefly, for most of 92Y's history, the organization has served a very local community, but our center is charged with taking 92Y's mission and expanding it outside of New York City. And we run a number of different programs, many of them on a global scale, and our largest and the one that really informs our work is GivingTuesday. When we first had the idea for GivingTuesday back in 2012, we're going into our 6th year. I won't give into too much of the history because I'm assuming that most of you have heard of GivingTuesday, but basically after 2 days in a row of getting deals, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, also now Small Business Saturday, GivingTuesday is a day for giving back. And what started as a simple idea has really turned into a global movement that's been built by individuals, families, organizations, businesses, and communities in all 50 states and around the world. It's a day every year when millions of people come together to support and champion the causes they believe in, the communities they live in. And at its heart, GivingTuesday really demonstrates how every act of generosity counts and how it means so much more when we give together. So this year's GivingTuesday is going to take place on November 28th. And over the next few minutes, I'm just going to share a broad overview of the movement, and then I'm going to turn it back over to the Groundwork folks who will share the strategy they've developed for maximizing your GivingTuesday impact. So you just heard a little bit about some of the figures behind Giving Tuesday last year. That $177 million raised online, 1 million plus donors. That's just looking at online giving in the 24 hours of Giving Tuesday. We're going to include offline gifts for Giving Tuesday campaigns that were longer than just one day, large pledges made by board members. So this number is definitely also this chart. You can see where we started year one and where we are now. Volunteerism. So this is part of a large infographic that we created this year just to illustrate a tiny, tiny fraction of people giving time or expertise, food, clothing, or just simple acts of kindness. So Giving Tuesday to us, the way we really think about it, is that it's a way to unite communities. So last year, in the wake of a very tumultuous election season, organizations and people of all political leanings really embraced Giving Tuesday and the idea that giving is a universal value, that giving demonstrates the underlying goodness in people. So there's no right or wrong way to participate in Giving Tuesday, but I will say that nonprofits that embrace this kind of celebratory ethos, this idea of unity, did very well on that day. And moving on to the next slide, one of the coolest and most heartwarming manifestations of the community idea are Giving Tuesday community campaigns. Last year, organizations, businesses, schools, governments in over 80 cities, states, and counties came together on Giving Tuesday to shine a light and celebrate giving in their communities. Everywhere from small communities like Bethel Gives in Bethel, Alaska, and Newton, Kansas, to large campaigns in Charlotte and Illinois. You can see a map of all the community campaigns on our website. And we are always happy to connect you to leaders in a specific community, or if there isn't a community campaign in your city, you can step up and be that force this year. We have someone on the Giving Tuesday team that is available who specializes in supporting our community leaders that can answer questions and talk you through what that process would entail. So in addition to the U.S., I also want to mention that Giving Tuesday had activations in nearly 100 countries last year. And this includes 30 full-fledged Giving Tuesday organized country movements, everywhere from Giving Tuesday Panama to Giving Tuesday Slovenia to Giving Tuesday Kenya. And this has just been amazing to see. Countries that don't have a tradition of Thanksgiving or Black Friday, or sometimes philanthropy at all. That's just not as common as here in the U.S. So I do think there's something very powerful to know that on Giving Tuesday, people all over the world are giving back together. And then here's a look at some social media from Giving Tuesday 2016. Giving Tuesday has a hashtag in its name that's a very deliberate choice. We believed in the beginning and now have data to back up the claim that people want to talk about positive things on social media and things that matter to them. Giving Tuesday always trends, and we always see a halo effect on the days before and after. This year on Twitter, we trended ahead of Cyber Monday for almost all of Cyber Monday. And it is really powerful to see people discuss their philanthropy and other giving on social media in an intentional and in a meaningful way, and then to see how these online conversations drive donations. I know Justin will talk more about influencers and tapping into their reach. And of course, there's also traditional media as well. There are thousands of Giving Tuesday stories every year in local newspapers and on local news, and Giving Tuesday is a great hook. So I encourage you to think about how you can use Giving Tuesday to pitch to local media, and we have some resources on our website to help with that. So starting to wrap up this Owning It slide, we really encourage ownership and creativity around Giving Tuesday. We love to see organizations and companies take a logo, make it theirs, and really own a piece of the movement. So here are just a few examples, but there are hundreds of them if you just kind of start poking around on Twitter and on the internet in general. Just one I love is that since year one, Dress for Success runs a campaign called GivingTuesday, asking women to donate the professional shoes or make a donation to buy a new pair. And then this year we saw for the first time another Giving Tuesday for an animal rehabilitation center that we're using the hashtag for a fundraising campaign to get people shoes. So again, there's so many examples. Be creative, be fun. Again, feel free to change the colors to just make it your own. So before I turn to Justin, I just want to say thank you again for tuning in today. It's June. It's a great time to begin your thinking about what you're going to be doing this year for Giving Tuesday. I highly recommend visiting our website. There are lots of resources and tools, more case studies, really everything you need to start planning your campaign. And we're updating all of our tools for 2017 in the coming weeks. And we also have a blog, and we're always looking for cool campaigns to highlight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Justin Ware.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I really appreciate it. I want to send an alert out to everyone who's listening in right now. If you're having any issue with audio, which sometimes does happen if you're listening to this on a computer connection. So if you can pull it up on your phone, if you can use the dial-in information in the invitation, if you can do that versus listening to it on the computer, that usually clears things up. A lot of times it's kind of a local connection issue. So if you're having trouble with audio, and I'll try to say this slowly because if you're having trouble with audio, you probably would have a hard time hearing me say this. But if you are having trouble with audio, please do use the call-in line from a phone, and then you'll be in really good shape. That usually clears up any issues. So with that, thank you again so much, Jessica, for this opportunity. I've been following Giving Tuesday for many, many years now, and it's really exciting for us to be able to get to know the folks at the 92nd Street Y and, be able to partner with them on this webinar and hopefully beyond, because it's an incredible movement. And, for us, it's really interesting because we've been doing online giving days for a long time. I've been doing online giving days for various organizations since about 2011 actually is when we started planning the first ones. And Giving Tuesday for a lot of organizations and institutions is just that. It is an online giving day, an enormous celebration of philanthropy in the name of your fundraising mission. And we've seen incredible results along the way. So whether we're talking about Giving Tuesday or a standalone giving day, it is almost without exception the annual fund's biggest day of the year. Doesn't matter if it's a hospital, doesn't matter if it's in a university or a college, doesn't matter if it's a humanitarian organization, animal welfare organization. There's so much excitement, so much activity, so many donors decide to either make another gift, make their first gift, make an additional gift, that usually annual giving comes out on top in a big way. It's an enormous donor acquisition tool, Giving Tuesday, because usually we have online ambassadors involved. All the clients we work with, that's one of the staples, one of the fundamental pillars of a good Giving Day strategy is working with those peer-to-peer influencers. Online ambassadors are those who will share posts on Facebook, we'll use email, we'll talk about to their friends, we'll use text messaging to get news of the Giving Day out. And when that happens, we acquire a lot of new donors. We'll talk more about that in just a bit. But ultimately, it's about amplifying your fundraising message. And to Jessica's point, it's about amplifying your mission to a whole new segment, whole new audiences, people who never would have considered supporting your organization, volunteering for your organization, giving for your organization. For the first time, when you're really active in social media and on email, a lot of these new potential supporters are going to catch on and are going to be really excited about supporting your organization. So a lot of reasons to do this. Another one that I think is probably pretty obvious for most of us, but for younger generations, online is especially important. Millennials from the Millennial Impact Report will say that they prefer actually to learn about a nonprofit through social media. They also say that a dynamic web presence is crucial. And when we talk about a dynamic web presence here, yes, that definitely means good technology. That's very important. But it also means their networks, their communities, their friends are excited about something online, excited about an internet-based activity. And Giving Days and Giving Tuesday creates that kind of excitement. The big surprise for a lot of people is just how important it is for major donors. And this was a big surprise for us too when we first discovered this more than 5 years ago when we were doing our first Giving Day with Florida State University. During that Giving Day, we had a donor make a single $100,000 pledge. Unexpected. We had no communication with that donor prior to the Giving Day. This is a case of someone seeing this live event getting entangled in the enthusiasm, feeling really positive about being a part of this, but this individual also happened to have quite a bit of wealth and capacity. So they called up and they said, you know, how can I help? I want to help in a big way. And that day made their first ever gift, a $100,000 gift to Florida State. That first ever part's really important. 12 major donor prospects on Florida State's first giving day made their first gifts ever to the institution. Most of them were in the $100, $500 range and would need to be nurtured and cultivated before they would make a gift like this. But one of them, again, first gift ever, cited the giving day, said they were excited about it, and made a $100,000 gift. And, you know, between myself and Rosa, we have done dozens of online giving days, whether with the Scale Funder platform where we were prior to Groundwork Digital, whether it was back with Ben Swaley-Flessner when I was there. We keep seeing it unfold. Major donors tend to get very excited about online events, and you know the writing probably should have been on the wall for us a long time ago. Dating all the way back to 2011, there's a Fidelity Investment study that says that 85% of millionaires use social media. That is much higher than the general population. There are plenty of other studies from Blackbaud and VO organizations like that that will tell you that the more wealth a person has, the more active they are online, in using mobile pay, in using apps, in using text messaging. The reality is, I think we kind of got trapped in this concept that online giving is only for small gifts, so it can't be, you know, anything to do with major donors. And sure, most major donors are not going to give 6, 7-figure gifts online. But when it comes to engaging them, getting those major donors excited, cultivating them, stewarding them, online might actually be your most important channel. We see the UCSB Give Day. Again, this is one that was done on the Scale Funder platform back in April of 2016, I believe, and it was an enormous day. Of the $3.72 million raised, 3.5 was organized from major donors leading up to the event. I remember doing a workshop on campus with the Board of Trustees, and the enthusiasm from that board for being a part of this day. They were literally signing up for $5,000 matches on their way out of the room after that presentation. So, you know, major donors are very, very excited about online giving days. Major donors are very, very excited about online. World Vision United States, again, this is back to when I was with Ben Swaley-Flessner. We did an assessment, and what we found during that assessment was a woman who, for her 60th birthday, used the organization's crowdfunding platform to set up a campaign to raise $60,000 in 24 hours. Now, ordinarily, those of you who are familiar with crowdfunding, you would never in a million years recommend one person set a $60,000 24-hour goal to try to reach that. But she did. She's doing it on her own. You know, it's a nice setup. World Vision had some tools that any donor could go and set up a campaign to raise money, and this woman did. And she's a major donor, so she thinks in these terms, and she put a $60,000 goal on her birthday, and she beat it. She raised more than $60,000 in 24 hours. What's really awesome, 12 of the gifts to that campaign were from new donors, and each one of them gave at least $1,000, an immediate signal that that person has potential and capacity. So right there, we're talking about 12 new donor prospects thanks to an online campaign from this one particular donor. So let's talk about Giving Tuesday and how we can set up to raise some serious money for your organization. I had mentioned earlier online ambassadors. Peer-to-peer is a very, very effective form of communication. As a matter of fact, it's the most trusted form of communication, and this predates online by a long shot. I think for many, many, probably millennia, we've been in a situation where we turn to our friends, our loved ones, those we know and trust to get information because it's authentic, it's real. We're always going to trust them over a brand or even a nonprofit organization. So that's probably not too surprising. But the thing is, when you add online, it's even more powerful. So when we have ambassadors involved in a giving day or an event like Giving Tuesday, it does equal new donors. In fact, looking back, I think this study was done by Ben Swaley-Flessner, but 40% of the donors who give during giving days, when online ambassadors are involved, are new donors. It was mostly a higher education study. There were a couple outliers, a couple hospitals, and in that case it was as high as 75%. Because you have online ambassadors who are sharing your message to their online networks, many of whom probably have never heard about your organization before, at least never considered giving to your organization. So you're using these ambassadors to open up these new segments that you have absolutely no way of reaching through traditional email, through direct mail, through any other channel. These online ambassadors can do that in a heartbeat and actually have your campaign go viral. This is how you make campaigns go viral, is by working with online ambassadors. And for millennials, it's crucial. And an important thing to point out, you know, I think when we think millennials, we think kids, right? Like everybody just out of college. And the reality is that just out of college means you're no longer a millennial, more than likely. People who are 22, 23 are actually part of Generation Z. Millennials on the upper end are almost 40. On January 1st, the oldest millennials will be 38 years old. Their habits haven't changed. They are still digital natives. They are still very active online. Online ambassadors are crucial for them. The only thing that's changed from now, back when we were talking about millennials 10 years ago, is millennials have a lot more money and capacity to give to your organization. And that's probably one of the many reasons why ambassadors have been so successful. You know, there's many, many, many examples of giving days all around the country, all around the world, where online ambassadors have been effective fundraisers. And looking at some numbers and some data that we've compiled over the years from a number of organizations, we've determined very conservatively that one online ambassador on a giving day equals $125 worth of fundraising. So obviously when you pile those up, the numbers go up, and you can expect, you know, if you have a few hundred ambassadors, probably tens of thousands of dollars of activity. There's a lot of factors that go into that, of course. It's not a guarantee. And you do want to have a good program in place. And this is the 4-step program that we think works as well as anything. A knowing and identification, engagement, deployment, and stewardship strategy for getting these ambassadors in the door. First things first, finding them. You've got to find people with influence to support your organization. You know, the only time, only once, have I really worked on a campaign where the ambassadors didn't perform up to snuff, and the reason why is because we just kind of let anyone who wanted to be an online ambassador in, and didn't have any external technology, didn't really do our due diligence in making sure that not only do we have enthusiastic supporters, but we have enthusiastic supporters who have true influence online, mainly on social media, because that's what you can measure. But email can also be incredibly powerful if you can put that in the hands of online ambassadors. And if you find someone who's influential on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, chances are they can use email for you pretty well as well. So for identification, you know, you can do this manually. If you're a small organization especially, even having a half dozen online ambassadors is far superior to having none. In fact, one program I worked on about 4 or 5 years ago, we actually only had 6 online ambassadors. It was for I'd say a mid-sized private liberal arts college, university. We only had 6 online ambassadors, but when they were sent a message to share, when we asked them to boost a Facebook post just by their liking it, commenting on it, sharing it, they would do that. And those 6 ambassadors, on average, tripled the amount of engagement on those Facebook posts. Just 6 online ambassadors for a Facebook community of tens of thousands of people. Part of it has to do with the algorithms on Facebook, which of course are ever-changing. But you know, the more you see people like things, that'll show up in more people's feeds, and commenting, and of course sharing it will show up in other people's feeds. So when you get even a small group of online ambassadors, and again, if you've really done your due diligence and found people who have real online influence, they can be impactful. But the more the merrier. I mean, again, $125 per online ambassador during a giving day. So if you have 100 ambassadors, that's a lot better than just having 10. There is a lot of technology out there that can help you find them. There's the Attentively product from Blackbaud. There's Hubbub. You know, there are a number of tools that will allow you to screen your email list and look for those who have social media influence. They're surprisingly accurate. They're very good at giving you the data you need, and they can be very helpful. If you're a large organization, it's probably worth the $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, especially considering that you want to do this ambassador program beyond a giving day in most cases. Engagement, you could pick up a phone and call people. If you have a major donor who's an online ambassador, you should do that. Have a face-to-face or at least person-to-person discussion with them. If you know, if you want a larger, or if you want a large ambassador program, and you probably do, email works very well to invite these ambassadors. Again, if you have technology, you know, you can invite them into a platform technology, you know, like a social toaster, like what Scale Funder or community funded or organizations like that have, or platforms like that have, to not just find your ambassadors, but actually engage them and get them, you know, ready to go with a dashboard they can share. We've always recommended doing an event. In a lot of cases, it's a webinar. So we'll produce a webinar that, first of all, lets ambassadors understand, you know, what they're trying to accomplish, what they can accomplish, and then what they can expect from your organization. And just recently, we've actually discussed the idea of doing some live events, and we're really excited about that because one of the things, I mean, you know, it's all about being multi-channel, right? So if you have this online ambassador crew that's all online, engaging online, but maybe never gets a chance to see each other or meet each other, we think it might be a lot better if to start the program, and maybe even throughout the history of the future of the program, you have events, you know, happy hours, something on campus, something on site, something where people can kind of see and feel the mission, but also get to know their fellow online ambassadors and really see the community they're a part of. Deployment is just getting them to share content. During a giving day, during Giving Tuesday, if you have a volunteer drive, if you have a particular hashtag drive, communication mission, and of course a fundraising mission, make sure your ambassadors know what to share. Send them content. You can do this via email. You can do it via a specialized platform. There are a number of different approaches to doing so, but making sure you have content ready for these ambassadors to share. Obviously, encouraging them to produce their own content. User-generated content is always the best content. That's tough to do, though. So what you want to do is make this as easy as possible for online ambassadors. Get them good content. Get it in their hands. Make it one-click sharing if possible so that they can help spread that wildfire and make your campaign go viral. And, the always, I think, shortchanged piece, or sometimes shortchanged piece, and especially in the online world, is stewardship. But we want to make sure that ambassadors feel good about what they're doing. They are volunteers, and you should manage them just like any other volunteer. A lot of people turn to a reward system, giving away freebies, gifts, that type of thing. That's possible. But what we've seen more recently is that simply showing their ambassadors the real impact they have, creating unique URLs so you can track how many gifts come in through their activity, how many dollars they've raised through their activity, showing them the reach of their message, how many times they've clicked on a post. We were just talking with the folks at Texas Christian University, and they said they found that showing people their impact, showing ambassadors their impact, was a much more powerful incentive to encourage their behavior than giving them really cool gifts. Actually, they had like this really neat Yeti cooler and some other really interesting apparel, and not just your run-of-the-mill type stuff, but some really awesome gifts that I would think would get ambassadors very excited. And not to say that it didn't, but they found that showing ambassadors the impact they were having on the giving day, on the mission at hand, was actually what incentivized them the most. All right, so we've already talked a bit about technology, but what we're really kind of digging into here is making the gift happen. I mean, it's an online giving day, right? Giving Tuesday is an online event. People are sharing information online, making gifts online. Ultimately, if your technology doesn't work, then the business end of the whole exchange is kind of kaput, and you're probably not going to have a whole lot of success on the giving day. So it's important, I think, that you have the technology lined up. And I want to talk about a few different options to meet all different budgets for Giving Tuesday, because you can have some very good technology for zero money up front. That is possible for some of the more cash-strapped nonprofits. There are, of course, some things you trade in exchange for that no budget up front, but there are options. So the first thing I want to talk about is Facebook. Huge network. I mean, almost 2 billion users at this point. I feel like every time we dig into the slide, we put another, 100 million people onto it. It's amazing how fast it continues to grow, and more than half of America is active on a near daily basis on Facebook. I mean, really, that's true. More than half of America logs into Facebook on a near daily basis. That kind of reach, there is nothing. There is no TV network, no newspaper, no publication, no other app or social network that can reach that many people. There never has been that kind of penetration in history. It's just amazing, the reach of Facebook. So, it makes sense then, if you're a nonprofit, to try to obviously leverage that as much as you can. Facebook in 2016 got into the Giving Tuesday game, and they had quite a bit of success, actually. This is essentially their beta test with Facebook fundraisers on Giving Tuesday, and they raised nearly $7 million. They also put up some matches. They partnered with the Gates Foundation and put up, I think, $500,000 from Gates, just straight up matches the first $500,000 that were raised, and then Facebook waived their processing fees up to $500,000, and they quickly blew past that, obviously, with raising almost $7 million. But they are in the game now. Facebook does, is involved in the nonprofit space for sure, and it makes sense, I think, to get your nonprofit set up in the Facebook universe. At a minimum, do this. Go on, look at, setting your nonprofit up for Facebook. It is a process of A, making sure that your Facebook page is listed as a nonprofit page, and then B, completing an application. When you do that, on days like Giving Tuesday, for example, even if you're not making a push on Facebook, but if one of your supporters says, I want to raise money for such and such charity or such and such food shelf or this humane society or this, what have you, school, hospital, a drop-down list will show your name. It will pop up. Person can click that, and then all this just pre-populated. The cover photo you want, the information about your organization that you want, and then the person just hits create, and voila, their entire network, their newsfeed, people in their friend community on their news feeds will see your nonprofit show up and they'll be able to make a gift through that nonprofit. So I would say at a minimum you want to do this. You're going to get gifts, you're going to get dollars, you're going to get first and last name of all the donors. You might get some emails as well. If you want to take it a little bit further, work with your online ambassadors to set up Facebook fundraisers of their own. Now again, I kind of view this as, for some it might be a low-cost option, but it's also where all the people are. So, again, we'll talk in just a second about some of the shortcomings of working with Facebook and what you don't get with other standalone platforms or what you do get with other standalone platforms you don't get with Facebook, and it's in the data. But there are some advantages. One of it is just the ease of setting it up. The other one is the fact that, as we just discussed, there's almost 2 billion people on Facebook, and more than half of North America is active on Facebook on a regular day. There is no upfront cost, and it is pretty slick. I used this last year myself. It's very, very easy to set up a fundraiser. So if you want to go this route, get your ambassadors, talk to them, walk them through this process. It's not very difficult, and set these up on their Facebook pages on GivingTuesday. You should have quite a bit of success in raising a lot of money and probably finding a lot of new donors out of it as well. Now again, it's Facebook. Their terms of services dictate that you can't pull that email address unless the user specifically says so. So what you get from this is you get the donor's first name, last name, and all the money raised minus, I think, 5%. It's a reasonable fee. A lot of platforms charge at least that, especially considering there's no upfront fee. But you don't get mailing address, you don't get phone number, you don't get to offer, you don't get to put a long list of optional questions, which typically tend to hurt conversion rates anyway, so that's not the worst thing. But first name, last name, dollar amount is all you're guaranteed. There is a field they can click off and send you emails, so you will get some emails as well. So again, huge reach, lots of potential, marketing if nothing else for your organization, because Facebook is just so prolific, but a little bit short on the data side of things. Good tech is a must, though. So if data is crucial to you, don't just send people to a bland online giving form on GivingTuesday. There are lots and lots of options. If you're in the higher ed healthcare space, there's the scale funders, the community funded hubbubs. If you're in a broader nonprofit world, there's Classy, there's Indiegogo, there's GoFundMe. There are a lot of options, varying price scales and whatnot. But we would recommend that if you're not going to do something like Facebook fundraisers, or if you have a little bit more budget, considering some of these tools. Because here's the thing: poor technology during a giving day, especially a day like GivingTuesday, when the expectations are so high, is a little bit like the food at Fire Festival. Now here we had Fire Festival. People paid $10,000 a ticket. Some of you may have heard of this before, but it was the event organized, I think, in the Bahamas, and it was supposed to be like the super posh Coachella or something along those lines. And it was I don't even understand how they screwed it up this badly. But what you're seeing here on the right is actually their quote-unquote gourmet food options. Literally 2 pieces of dry bread, 2 pieces of cheese, and some lettuce and tomatoes, no dressing. That's kind of the quintessential image that's been floating around for Fire Festival. Anyway, huge expectations. People thought they're going to go to the concert experience of their lifetimes, paid enormous amounts of money for it, and then once they got to the business end of things, it was an unmitigated disaster that left them all incredibly disappointed. Kind of like what happens when you have this huge event, all this great content, people feel really good about getting involved in GivingTuesday and supporting your organization, and it's just a bunch of fields for their name, credit card, and laborious long list of optional things that they want to support. So really do consider technology. It's the business end of the deal when it comes to online fundraising. Last but not least, content. And a very difficult thing for a lot of people because it does take time, takes resources, and it takes expertise. I mean, there is some art to this. But when it comes to content, and especially when it comes to video, there's few things you can do better for your organization. A study from Google a few years ago found that 57% of everybody who watches a nonprofit video will eventually go on and make a gift to that nonprofit. 57%. If that's even 25% true, that's really, really impressive when you consider that, if you boost a post on Facebook, you could be looking at easily 100,000 people depending on how big your reach is and how much ad spending you put behind it, especially if that post is a video post. So think about video. It doesn't have to look perfect. I'm not saying you shouldn't invest in some really good video, because that has an incredible return if you get some really good video folks behind something. So do consider that, but not everyone can spend that. Not everyone has the budget to spend $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 on video. But most of you have a smartphone in your pocket. Pull that out, set it up in front of your executive director, go out and talk to some donors, some major gift donors. You know, go show the impact in your community. Simple 30-second, 60-second, 120-second videos. Put them together, get them out there, share them on Facebook, put them on YouTube, experiment with it. You know, you'll learn things as you do this, but it's great content. It's solid gold content, and it's really not that hard to produce. Another really easy way to get good content out is through memes. You know, a meme generator, and you can just Google meme generator, and when you do that, you'll find countless platforms that will allow you to either pick from some of these more famous, like that baby with a fist meme, or even upload some of your own photos, put text across it, put a hashtag on it. Incredibly shareable. Instagram gold. It performs really well on Facebook. We just, you know, through Groundwork ourselves, actually just had a lot of success with some memes on Facebook. So, you know, it's easy to do. It honestly takes about 5 or 10 minutes. The only obstacle here is, you know, do you have someone who can be funny in a meme? It's an art. I was fortunate enough to work with some people who are amazing at this kind of thing. I used to have like meme-offs in the office in various roles that I've had. So, you know, finding the individuals who can really do this well is solid gold, because it's free content. It takes a few minutes to produce, and it can really drive a lot of conversation and sharing on something like Giving Tuesday or a giving event. Once you get all that content out, just make sure you're sharing it in every way possible. Not just necessarily packaging it once and sending it out via all channels, but doing things a little differently for Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Doing things a little different via email. You know, email, I think it's always best to have short text, maybe one CTA button, call to action button, and maybe a link. But get things out through social media, have a plan for email, and always remember your online ambassadors. If you've got a good ambassador core, they are a communications channel for you. And honestly, they're some of the most effective. Looking at a Blackbaud study, I can't recall exactly when this was done, but fairly recently, a Blackbaud study found that with online ambassadors, when they share an email, the conversion rate is 1 in 4, 25%. 25% conversion rate on emails sent by online ambassadors. If you send that exact same email from your organization, it's 1 in 1,250, I think. It's a 0.08 conversion rate. Online ambassadors have a 25% conversion rate. Your organization is 0.08. That right there should be enough to say, hey, we got to drop everything we're doing right now and get ambassadors involved in a big way, because they have an incredible impact. Last but not least, when we're talking about getting your content seen, digital advertising is important. Facebook ads are the best bang for the buck. There are exceptions, of course, for different situations, but broadly speaking, it's just not even close. You know, in the nonprofit world, we see some organizations like California Academy for Sciences that have 6 times higher lead traffic on their website versus any other form of advertising. We know some that have had 2x increases on online giving versus other forms of advertising. By factors of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Facebook outperforms every other form of online advertising. That's not new. It's been that way for several years. Facebook keeps on getting better. It's complicated. There's a lot to learn when it comes to Facebook ads. We know personally, because we spent a lot of time, a lot of months, a lot of years actually working with Facebook ads, and you know, getting that right is tough to do, especially since if you think you had it down and the last time you did it was 2 years ago, it's going to look entirely different than it does now. So it does have to help to have some expertise on this. I mean, dollars are one thing, but doing it right is another thing. But they are incredibly powerful if you know what you're doing. Retargeting is another example. You know, think about when you're online and you're looking at a pair of shoes or some new clothes or, you know, maybe a new tent or something like that from REI, and, you know, you didn't quite fill out the process. Maybe you got to the cart, but you abandoned. And then for the next 2 or 3 days, that tent or those shoes are staring at you in the banner section of your computer, you know, forever. There's plenty of data that suggests that that type of retargeting works really well in the nonprofit space as well. So when people get to the, you know, the checkout form, they're about to make a gift, but they don't complete that gift, it's a nice, not so subtle reminder of what they maybe intended to do. That's up there for them for several days, or at least maybe during a day like Giving Tuesday. That is also effective. It works quite well. So there's lots of different options, but digital advertising I think is important. So with that, and I know we're going to be taking some questions soon, so I'm excited to hear your questions. If you haven't already submitted some, please do, in that right-hand column, there's that questions field. You can submit those there. Send them to Rosa, please, or send them to myself. We'll be reading through those in just a bit. But before we get to those questions, I just kind of want to recap here, talk about a few things. Again, build your ambassador program. Whether it's for Giving Tuesday, or a walk or a run you have scheduled, or just general communication, even stewardship. You think about it, if a donor makes a gift because they saw something from an online ambassador, you want that ambassador to be involved in stewarding that donor. You want them to be getting content out to those new donors on a regular basis. You don't want to just put them right into the typical pipeline. If a donor made a gift because of an online ambassador, that stewardship package should look a little bit differently for those donors. So there's a lot to think about with online ambassadors, but at a minimum, find your biggest heavy hitters in the social media space on email, get a program going for them, get your message out through those ambassadors. Use smart technology. Again, business end of the transaction, it's where everything happens. You want your donors to have a good, simple experience. It'll affect conversion rates, which means you're going to have more gifts and more dollars if you have good technology. Great content. It doesn't have to be hard, especially if you have someone who really has a knack for good content, but it's very important. And then make sure you see it. Make sure ambassadors are sharing it. Make sure you're using digital advertising. All of the above. So, we do a lot of this work ourselves, of course. We do Giving Tuesday packages and Giving Day packages. As I mentioned, as a team, we've done more than 3 dozen online Giving Days for various organizations. If you want to take it to the next step, if you want to look at things like stewardship throughout the year, if you want to look at major gift work, really, truly online giving year, as opposed to just an online Giving Day, we have a digital fundraising manager package for organizations, and we also have a digital major gift officer package where we're injecting digital into your major gift work to, again, uncover some of those prospects you probably don't know about yet. Just email us at info@groundworkdigital. We'd be happy to talk with you about that and really anything else. Follow us online. We are groundworkdigital.com. If you're on Facebook, facebook.com/groundworkdigital. Can't wait to hear from you. Can't wait to see you. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Rosa and invite Jessica back in, and we will answer questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. Yes, we do have a couple of questions here we want to answer, and the first one I think is one that both Jessica and Justin can answer. So, Jessica, given your experience with Giving Tuesday, can talk. We'd love to hear a little bit about, money that is raised to match gifts. So I think maybe speaking to some of that Facebook opportunity, but just overall, how is money raised to do matching gifts on the day of? If you're a part of a bigger project like Giving Tuesday, or and then maybe speak a little bit more to the responsibility of an organization. Justin, I think maybe this one would be one you can tackle. How do you get moving on that to find matching funders for something like Giving Tuesday?
Sure, so I'll start. That's a great question. Matches do very, very well on Giving Tuesday. There are some giving platforms. I just mentioned at the top that Giving Tuesday, as an organization, we are completely cause agnostic. If you want to fundraise on Facebook or Indiegogo or some other way, whatever you want to do, go for it. That said, there are some platforms that do offer matches to get people using them on Giving Tuesday. So that's always like a very simple way. Someplace like Global Giving often will do matches, for the first X number raised by anyone on that day. But I would really think about board members, about individuals that are really excited, other donors really excited about specific programs you have, and share with them what Giving Tuesday is all about. And finding a match that you can leverage on the day is just such a great way to incentivize people. I always think that part of the reason is you're coming off of Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and you're used to getting all these deals, and to be able to say to someone, every dollar you spend is actually $2. I mean, it plays into that mindset. So I'm a huge fan of matches, however you can find them. But yeah, they do tend to do very well on Giving Tuesday.
Yeah, no, that's to build off what Jessica says. I think there's a study out of UC San Diego that said donors are actually 20% more likely to make a gift if a match, and it doesn't matter how big the match is, but if any match is in play. if they can see that their gift is going to go a little bit further because of someone else putting up a big amount of money. I mean, you think about public radio, you know, if anyone listens to public radio or even I think public television, they constantly are trotting out $25,000 matches to try to lock up that last $500 before the top of the hour. And like it almost always works. So yeah, there's stats behind it that's been in practice for a long time outside of online giving. And it does. I mean, it really does drive activity. You know, we're actually going to be releasing a video next week that talks about a past client that's done some really cool stuff with matches and how they set it up. And that's the tricky part, is getting those matches set up and having those conversations with the donors. And a lot of it has to do with just making that ask, but getting the major donors, development officers, comfortable with going out and having those conversations is another thing entirely. So a lot of the work that we focus on is actually on that back end, and working with the major donors, putting a detailed strategy, the major gift officers, putting a detailed strategy in place so that those gift officers know, all right, this is what we're focused on. This is the purpose of the day. Even though I don't use Facebook personally, I can talk intelligently about it because I've been equipped with it from the training that I got through the organization. So making sure that your front-end team, frontline team that's out there talking with those major donors is comfortable and confident in the message around a giving day is enormous. Because again, like I said, once you actually have those conversations with the big donors, the big gift donors, they can't wait to sign up. I've never seen a situation where we've just struck out entirely after engaging those major donors. The holdup is, can we get the gift officers to go out there and have those conversations with the major donors?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both. It was a perfect combination of answers there. We've got another question here just about, what is the most common mistake you see in a Giving Tuesday specific campaign? So maybe Jessica, that's one you can tackle, and Justin, one you've seen on Giving Days overall.
If I could choose just one, and it's one I see all the time, it is not saying thank you, not showing gratitude to your supporters. And I think what gets tricky sometimes with crowdfunding campaigns is knowing who should be making that thank you. Obviously you'll be thanking the people who are your ambassadors, but if your ambassadors have brought new people into your organization, making that connection as well, or making sure that the ambassadors as the middlemen are making that connection. It should be in the days following, just as an immediate acknowledgement, but then in the months following, letting them know what the impact of that donation was.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and actually, I've worked with a lot of clients, or have known of a lot of organizations that have used Giving Tuesday as a thank you day. They've gone out and instead of, the email will say something along the lines of, we know you're having a lot of requests to support some amazing organizations today. We just want to say thank you. And at the bottom of the email is a Donate Now button. And actually, the conversions on those are very, very high. I've worked with some organizations that have had a lot of fundraising success, not directly asking for a gift, but just having a thank you themed email and then putting a donate button at the bottom. But maybe you don't even want to be tricky. Maybe you just want to genuinely do that and have a thank you day on Giving Tuesday. That can work really, really well. So yes, I mean, the stewardship piece is huge. Otherwise, it's any of the things we talked about. Content is big. I've seen a lot of organizations put a lot of time into some great software. They have a really good plan. They have some matches and challenges set up even. And then day of, the main Facebook page for the hospital or the school or the organization posts once and says, hey, it's Giving Tuesday, it's Giving Day, will you support us? That doesn't cut it. I mean, on a Giving Day, whether it's Giving Tuesday or any other day, especially on any other day, because you are fighting the uphill battle of not having the movement to expand your support. That's when you really got to be active. And I'm talking a dozen posts from Facebook at least, just as many, if not more, from Twitter, all kinds of activity on Twitter, thanking people, mentioning them, posting information there, Facebook Live events. It really needs to be very vibrant. It needs to be very frequent and very consistent. And the thing is, especially on Facebook, people used to complain, but this is true about really all social media networks now. Those are curated sites. Those are curated news feeds. If someone doesn't want to see a fundraising message from you, they're not going to see much more than one or two, even if you do a dozen. Because unless you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on boosting those posts, it's not going to make it to their newsfeed because Facebook knows they don't want to see it. And if Facebook really knows they don't want to see it, even ads won't get past that. That's part of what makes Facebook so incredible, is that they are really, really, really good at showing people what they want to see. I think if we look at previous elections, I think that plays out. So you can't overdo it. You really can't overdo it on a giving day. And I guess maybe that is, one of the big mistakes that I see made is that people don't, A, produce enough content, don't share enough, aren't nearly active enough on those channels where their communities reside.
Fantastic. And we've got one more question, and I think this is targeted a little bit more to Jessica. But if you are a new organization that hasn't participated in Giving Tuesday before, do you need to sign up to be an official Giving Tuesday partner?
You do not. Our first few years, we really tried to keep tabs on everything that was happening, but at this point, it's a truly global movement, and every year we love to see people doing activities that we had no idea they were going to do. That said, we're about to open up our email registration again for this year. We'll be tweeting out about that, so follow us on Twitter and Facebook for updates. And if you want to join our email list, you'll get updates, new toolkits, all of that kind of regularly throughout the fall, and you'll also be added to our searchable database. So I recommend you sign up just to be kind of part of the family, but you definitely don't need to, and if you do, there is no cost.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica and Justin, just for sharing your expertise with us. We are so excited to have had such a good group join us today, and thank you for your time. If you want to talk to us a little bit afterwards, like Justin said, and on the presentation slide here, please feel free to send us an email at info@groundworkdigital.com. Happy to talk about all of your tech content, ambassador needs, and anything else you might want to discuss with regard to digital engagement and fundraising in the nonprofit space. So thank you again so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, and we're looking forward to talking with you soon.